The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
Yo, what's cracking, y'all? What's up, man? I'm GG. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's a place where black men can express themselves freely. Straight up with no chases, man. Shout out to all the haters out there. I know y'all lurking. Can't help but to. Peace out to y'all, man. If you come in, man, please like the video if you can. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And please hit the bell notification button. You know why. Before I get things started, man, I want to give a shout out to everybody who supports the Green Gorilla channel as a member. So shout out to Roderick Jackson, Michael Ross, 63rd Samurai, Ben Cannon Kenton, Sherlin Woe, Passport OG, Brotherly Love, Devon Loveridge, Ismail Samad, and The Watcher. Big up. Big up to Barnolas, Hostile Adept, Red Pill Revelator, Lee Ways, Lord Hamal, Kill the Game, Dr. Thunder, BGS Ivmore, Jason Hales, Charles Finney. An interesting thought, man. Big up. Big up Bim Rock, Blacksword 404, Until I'm Not, Apex Prowler, Naomi Gary, J. Cleveland Green, The Toxic Masculinist, Pulpit 28, No Sleep, Broken Blade, Mr. King, and Larry R. Big up. Big up Seth Son, Afro Troop TV, Show Me, Spain Man, Seven Coast Dojo, Anthony Davis, I'm Just Jules, and Honest Look, Ricky Dawson, Stefan, and Julius Ferguson. Big up. Big up Truth 7360, Mr. Meat 2, Call for President, Gold Professor, AKs and Curtains, H-Town, Roguish the Billmonger, Adrian Thomas, Electrician 480, Binga, and Cutting Up with the Jones. Big up. Big up Zanko 1, D. Scott, Path Guy, Pete Rock, Aaron Peters, Vincent Lindsay, Quiz the Poet, Black Wizard, Jazz Tech, Shadow Observer, and Artist and MC. Big up. Big up Troy Warren, Mrs. KP Bailey, Alan Wiley, The Face, Life of Commerce, AI, Apostle, Timothy Blewett, Jeffrey Speed, Marvin Battle Jr., and Adam. Big up. Big up Ignatz Mouse, Brian Peace, Black Uru, Dr. Tree 33, 77 Base X, Brian McMurray, K-Ron S, Charles Rogers, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, and Charles Gilmore. Big up. Big up Greg, Barry Little, Mr. Valentino, Cameron 87, Dr. Rock, Mark Swift, Odd Collar, Donald Watts, Coach Hotep, Old Soul Chief, and Mr. Blue Collar. Big up. Big up TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Rasheed Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, Double, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalonja Kala, and W. Pierre 1. Also, I can't forget the brethren, man, David Carroll, Kevin Samuels, and your boy Forrest Windu, man. Big up, man. On the Patreon side, I want to give a shout out to Robert Wicks, J.E.K., Chris Flowers, Christopher Burton, Daxby, J Live, Rashawn Phillips, Keith Bass, Nick, Albert C., Dr. Ben Vincent, I'm the Light of My Father, Waffle Weave, Darnell Smith, Excalibur, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi Momal, and Asangwa. Big up. Thank you for supporting the Green Gorilla channel on an ongoing basis. I appreciate it, man. You deserve a round of applause. Appreciate that, man. I really and truly do appreciate that, man. I do appreciate it, man. And if you want to become a member of the Green Gorilla channel, and I suggest you do, if you like the messaging and if you like the overall, content, man, please consider. But here's how you do it, man, and I'll be back. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely. Straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content. All right, man, it is what it is, man. I cut that out, man. I'm ready to move forward. I got some things to do. But I did want to cover this because, a friend of mine, a frat brother of mine, he and I had an argument. We were not really an argument, but we were going back and forth over Ja Morant. And whether he's a big dummy or whether or not he's a victim of corporate power and public relations and marketing, so the question is, like, is it a combination of both? What have you, man? Now, I don't know what your opinion about Ja Morant is, and I know this is not my normal time. Usually I'm on at 5 to like 5:15 or so. I figured I had to weigh in on this, and it's not that serious. I don't want to be here all night doing this, but I did want to weigh in on it. Okay? So, look, it's an important issue as far as I'm concerned, and it's a complex subject that navigates, I think, the intricate interplay between individual freedom, corporate power, and the right to self-defense. Okay, particularly in the context of Black America or Black Americans. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to speak about, because I'm an intellectual, and so therefore I'm going to engage in an intellectual exercise first, and then show how it applies to what it is I'm talking about. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to do is draw upon the philosophy of an individual named Robert F. Williams, who was a civil rights activist, and he wrote a book entitled Negroes with Guns. Negroes with Guns. Negroes with Guns. So in this book, Williams illustrates the necessity of self-defense living in a society that is plagued by systemic racism and violence. And his arguments provide a lens through which we can actually examine today's topic. To what extent can or should corporations limit an individual's exercise of their rights, their political rights, particularly when these rights intersect with public relations and marketing policies? Okay? Now, of course, everyone knows what the impetus for this is. The impetus for it all stems from a recent incident involving the NBA star Ja Morant, who was suspended for brandishing a weapon on social media. Okay? And the event, to me, it raises a series of questions. But perhaps the most glaring one is, quite frankly, why should an individual be penalized for exercising a constitutional right, namely the right to bear arms? So we have a commentator already. He says when they're writing the checks for millions of dollars, they can make demands. Ja Morant can exercise his Second Amendment gun rights without a camera in his face. He can. He can exercise his rights without a gun in his face. However, you'll see my argument. I get it. I mean, because that's going to be the standard argument. The argument is, if I give you something, then you have to do what I tell you to do. So if I give you money, I'm paying you, so therefore you can't show off your gun. Or it moves beyond just that though, because take for instance Kyrie Irving and what he had to say about black folks and Jews and you know his opinion about politics and race. Well, you can't say that either, right? Or it even extended to Udoka, to the point where, okay, well, you can't have consensual sex with anybody who works within this organization because I'm paying you. And then the question becomes, who the fuck is the corporation to tell you what the fuck you can't do or what you can do if it's your constitutional right to be able to do what the fuck you want to do within the scope of the law? I don't give a fuck if you paying me or not. But I'll get into why that's the case. Because I want you to contrast Ja Morant and his incident with the numerous instances of presidents, corporate CEOs, and other prominent figures of power publicly seen with guns. What about those guys? I mean, you see them with guns all the time. I seen Brett Favre with guns a whole bunch of times. Brett Favre. I seen George Herbert Bush. I seen him with guns on several occasions. I seen Trump with guns. They don't face reprisals. So the question is there a double standard at play? Does the corporate world, with its power to shape public perception and brand image, have too much control over an individual's rights? And look, to me, as far as I'm concerned, this expands beyond the realm of personal freedom, because it enters into the territory of livelihoods, retirement plans, and health insurance, all of which are connected to one's employment. And when a corporation can influence something so significant over an individual's life, do we not need to question the balance of power? I mean, at least question it. I'm asking you to think about it. I'm not asking you, I'm not telling you what you have to think. I'm just opening up debate. So, I mean, you have legal scholars numerous legal scholars quite a few, okay? And I can name them. If you won't know who they are, but I can name them. Many of you might. But there are numerous legal scholars who have indeed scrutinized the practice of corporations of telling people what they can say and what they can't say, what they can do and what they can't do. And many of these legal scholars argue that it's unconstitutional. And they postulate that a corporation, regardless of its size, how big it is, like the NBA or the NFL or the MLB or whatever the case may be, they basically put forth the notion that regardless of the corporation size or its influence, that it should not have the authority to limit an individual's rights. Now I can see if somebody has broken the law. That's a different subject matter altogether. But if you haven't broken the law, why should they have the authority to limit your rights? Especially when those rights involve public expressions that are connected to constitutional freedom. Freedoms afforded to you by the Constitution. So what I'm just saying is, it's just, I don't have to be all day with this either. I'm just opening this up for your thought. See, to me, this kind of corporate power and people's complicity with it teases up, in my mind, a contradiction within the concept and the way people perceive, negative liberty or freedom in general. Okay? So people will not accept interference of their rights by government or other individuals. But it seems that people will allow and permit for a corporation, an employer, to negotiate what it is that they can and what they cannot do, merely because you're employed by them. And they give you remuneration for what? For labor. It's not like, they're giving you shit for free. It's not like, you're giving them something. I mean, they're giving you something for free. It ain't like it's government cheese. You're working for that. And trust me, you're working for every cent you make from one of these corporations. And all I'm trying to say is the American ethos is always celebrated and fiercely protected our rights, the so-called constitutional rights, especially like a right like the right to bear arms, or freedom of speech, or the freedom of association. Because we understand that these so-called quote-unquote freedoms are foundational to our way of life. However, when it comes to a corporation, we tend to turn a blind eye when these liberties are infringed upon. And the question is, why? Why? And look, I understand, I get the point that the man is wealthy and that he doesn't have to be in possession of a firearm. But shit, George Bush didn't have to have a firearm. Donald Trump didn't have to have a firearm. Brett Favre didn't have to have a firearm. And the numerous other white boys who have firearms don't fucking need to have them. None of them have to have them. And I know, the one thing that we want to do is we want to look good. We want to say, okay, well, this boy, he ain't in the hood, he ain't in the trap. I can see if he murdered somebody. It ain't like a Gonzalez type of issue. It'd be different if we already know that this boy, he out somewhere with the Crips, putting in work, shooting, busting off, and we got him on camera or something like that. The dude is they in a car. Now, if it's illegal, okay, is it illegal for him to have a firearm? It's one thing for him to be doing something that's illegal. And to me, this moves just past this situation, though, because I'm using this situation as a springboard to have a more principled conversation about it, because it's filtered into other areas. We've seen, like, Kyrie Irving recently be reprimanded and told to recant related to him saying something that the league didn't agree with. And then people were like, well, they paid him. You get paid. You got to be quiet because you get paid. Like, why? They fired Udoka because he had a consensual sexual relationship with a woman, you can't do it. You can't have sex with her. That's against company policy. Man, fuck that. You don't tell me I can't have. She got the pussy, but she want to bust it wide open. I'm gonna bust it up in her. Fuck that. You can tell me I can't have. You can't have sex with that woman. And they'll be the first ones to be like pro, gay or trans. They'll support those kind of relationships. You taking meat in the seed or some shit like that, or cutting your dick off or something like that, they'll support that. Proud supporter of the Rainbow Coalition. So all I'm saying is, look, it's a dilemma, right? Because on the one hand, you have self-defense, and then on the other hand, you have gun violence. And so as you dig deeper into the issue, you can't ignore the looming subject matter of gun violence and how it disproportionately impacts the Black community and how it leads to a devastating loss of life. We already know that gun violence is one of the leading causes of death, or is the leading cause of death for Black men between the ages of 15 and 35. We already know this. Okay? But when you look at this statistic, you have to understand the nuances associated with it. And then if you want to, juxtapose gun violence with the whole argument, the philosophical argument of self-defense, things get a little more tricky. Because if you look at the philosophy of self-defense as put forth by Williams, you have to understand its implications in our context today. Because he wrote this, in the 70s, I think? So look, what Williams stated in Negroes with Guns, he says, look, I want to make the case for armed self-defense for Black folks. And he advocated for self-defense for Black folks and for Negroes to have guns because he says, look, there's so much systemic racial violence that we need to be able to protect ourselves from the police if they act up, from white mobs and vigilantes if they act up. We need to be able to have a means by which to protect ourselves. If anybody actually needs the capacity or the ability to protect themselves, one could argue it's Black folks. So his argument is a response to systemic racial violence that was, and one could argue in many ways still is, pervasive in our culture. And he argued for the right. No, better, a duty of Black Americans to protect themselves, especially when the very system designed to ensure their safety repeatedly failed them. However, today we witness an ironic and a tragic twist to this narrative. On the one hand, we have a Black athlete penalized for exercising his constitutional right to bear arms, a right Williams saw as essential for self-defense. On the other hand, we grapple with the reality of a disproportionate amount of gun violence within the Black community. Now, let me just get this straight. Now, Robert F. Williams and his advocacy for self-defense was not an endorsement of violence within the Black community. His plea for self-defense was actually a plea for life, for dignity and security in a society that often denied these rights to Black Americans. So actually, it was a call for protection against racial violence, not a call for Black people to be violent to each other. But then if you start exploring the issue of gun violence within the black community, you'll find that it's complex, it's multifaceted, it has roots in the social economic fabric of our culture. You got systemic racism, economic inequality, lack of access to quality education and employment opportunities for some guys. You got the war on drugs, among other factors, all which contribute to this phenomenon. They're correlated. Now, there's some people who are going to say, well, this is just all choice. It's all choice. You made a bad choice. A choice in the context of what? So you got systemic racism. It exists. And it's resulting in many black communities being economically disadvantaged with fewer opportunities for education and employment. And this lack of opportunity can lead to feelings of hopelessness and desperation, which can escalate into crime and violence. Then you got economic inequality, which is closely linked to racism, and it also plays a role. So when you have scarce resources and people are competing for the scarce resources, it can lead to conflict. And when you got people who live in poverty and they feel like they have little to lose, it can make violent crime seem like a viable option. Then you got the lack of access to quality education and employment opportunities, and it further exacerbates the problem. Now, one can argue, okay, well, John Morant is an individual who's transcended all that. Got it. We understand it. But still, we're not just talking about John Morant. We're talking about a larger issue. Because black folks aren't that, like we already know what our educational record is compared to every other demographic. We're not that high on the totem pole. We're not doing that well in the rankings. And there is a correlation with being educated and not engaging in violent activity. So education provides not only knowledge to people, but also tools to make better decisions and to be able to resolve conflict constructively. And also, without access to quality educations, people lack access to good jobs. They struggle to make ends meet, leads to frustration, resentment, and in many cases, it can lead to crime. You don't want to, I can get into the war on drugs, which to me is also contributed to gun violence in the black community. By criminalizing drug use, it's like what they did with alcohol. As soon as you create a black market, you're going to drive people to the market. They're going to take risks, especially people who don't have much. But this, the war on drugs has destabilized the black community in a variety of ways. I mean, it destabilized families through incarceration. People, became addicted. People are, protecting their turf and the trade. We all know how this goes. And that leads to violence, cyclical violence. So also you have to take into account how easy it is to get a weapon, right? And one can argue that this plays a role as well. So we need to limit it, okay? While you have a right to bear arms constitutionally, maybe it's a little bit too easy to get a gun, especially illegal guns, right? And if you can get a hold of an illegal gun really easily, one can argue that'll make it easier for a dispute to actually spiral into, a bout of violence or whatever the case may be. So, all of these issues can create an environment in which violence can thrive. And any conversation about self-defense is going to have to address these root causes. So while you advocate for self-defense rights, you also have to advocate for societal changes that are going to address some of the root causes of violence and the need for a reduction in self-defense in the first place. Maybe if society wasn't so fucked up, you wouldn't have so many people engaged in violence to begin with. But anyway, as you ponder over these issues, it's important to remember, like, that Robert F. Williams' central message was the right to life and dignity. And his call for self-defense wasn't a call to arms for people to just start arming themselves, but actually it was a call for respect and equality and the basic right to safety. But this brings me to the last phase of what I have to converse about. And ultimately, I just want to consider the implications of corporate power, individual rights, and the concept of negative liberty. Because to me, this issue isn't just about a sports figure being penalized for brandishing a weapon. It goes beyond that, as far as I'm concerned. And it treads on the principles of freedom and respect for constitutional rights and the balance of power between corporate entities and the individuals that work for them. Now, I'm not the biggest advocate of negative liberty, but if we're going to abide by it, then we got to be consistent in our application of it. So, of course, negative liberty is the freedom from interference, especially by the government. And again, it's a concept deeply rooted in the American ethos. We, celebrate it and fiercely protect it. But when a corporation infringes upon your rights, the response is just non-existent. Nobody says anything. It's as if we've collectively decided to turn a blind eye to the government, the corporation's encroachment on our rights. It's like, okay, fuck it. They can do whatever they want to because they're paying us. To me, this is inconsistent. It's like the selective application of the principles of freedom. And I find it deeply problematic. Because if constitutional rights, personal freedoms, and the essence of liberty are basically subject to restriction by corporate entities, then the question arises, well, how fucking free are we anyway? How free are we? And this question has implications because our livelihoods, how we make money, how we retire, our health insurance, and many other critical aspects of our lives are connected to our employment. So if we exercise rights in such a way that could jeopardize our livelihoods, our retirement plans, our health insurance, and other critical aspects of our lives, where does that actually leave us? So I'm just saying, if we want freedom in one domain, we have to ensure that we have freedom in all domains. To me, it's inconsistent to promote negative liberty while ignoring its infringements in the corporate world. Otherwise, to me, you just tap dancing for money. It's like, I gotta tap dance for money? You gotta tap dance for money. I'm just saying, like, look, if we're gonna have constitutional rights and personal freedoms, they have to be respected universally, not selectively. We can't just pick and choose. This nigga look a certain way, so fuck his rights. Or he getting paid, so fuck his rights. He works for a corporation and the corporation can infringe upon your rights. Like, how free are you actually? If a corporation can shut you out or shut you up or tell you what you can and what you can't do. Where's your freedom? So you won't let the government do it, but you'll let IBM do it. You'll let the NBA do it, the NFL do it. You'll let Netflix do it. You'll let FedEx do it. They can tell you what to do. Now the government better not tell you shit, but a corporation can tell you whatever. And that's the issue I got. And here, put it this way. One thing I know, it's true. You can work somewhere else. You don't have to work at the corporation you work for or whatever the case may be. You can find another place to work. But to me, that's a cop-out. I just don't like the idea of corporations being able to dictate what people can and what they can't do. Who you can fuck, who you can't fuck. Whether or not you can have a gun and show it, or whether or not you can't have a gun and show it. And look, if you're hunting, you can show the gun. If you're a nigga in a car and you look like a thug, you can't have a gun. That's bottom line. It's basically that's how I see it. If you're a white boy in some motherfucking camouflage outfit and shit with a deer stand, a tree stand, so all systems go. You can shoot all day. If you're in your car with a gun, you mean to tell me these white boys ain't got guns inside of their houses, man? Come on. We already know we're speaking behind avatars. But the question is, should we have to be behind a fucking avatar? Should we have to be? I personally am behind an avatar for a reason. I won't be behind an avatar forever. But many of my colleagues are out there in the open, speaking outwardly and openly. The question is, why are people so complicit with a corporation telling them what to do? At least in the government, you get to decide who represents you in the government. You get a choice. You don't get to decide who the CEO of your corporation is. You don't get to decide who the manager is, who the head of HR is, who the head of security is. Unless you're in the management and you're making that kind of decision collectively. I don't understand how you can be so adamant against the government telling you what to do, but then when it comes to a corporation, yes sir, boss, you said jump, how you want me to do? How you want me to go? I don't understand it. It's like,
not only will I do it for you, yes, I'll do it for you.
I do anything for you.
Anything you tell me to do, I'm gonna do it. Want me to stay late? Oh yeah, I'll stay late. Yeah, I'll do it. And it ain't just black folks confronted with this conundrum. But let me tie this back to Robert F. Williams and the principles he stood for. The importance of self-defense. And one can argue black people definitely have a need to be aware of and need to be kind of zealous about self-defense and personal liberty in the face of the systemic oppression that we've undergone in this country. And basically his philosophy provides us with a perspective as we navigate the intricacies of individual rights, corporate policies, and societal norms. Now, it's true. All of this is complex. But it's just a conversation, and we have to have it. Because it's not just about the right to bear arms. It's about the consistent and universal respect for individual rights. It's about the balance of power and the pursuit of a society that truly embodies the principles of freedom, equality, and justice. To me, it's not about John Morant. It's not about one athlete. It's not about one incident. It's not about one corporate decision. It's about the kind of society you want to live in and the values you want to uphold and the future you want to create. Do you want increasingly corporations to be able to tell you what you can and what you can't say related to race, what you can and what you can't say related to sex, what you can and what you can't do in terms of sex, what you can and what you can't do in terms of having a gun? How much are you willing to give up? And how much should you have to give up? To retire, to get a pension, to get health insurance? How much should you have to do? I mean, the genuflecting that people do on their jobs is asinine to me. It's too much. I come there, I do what I have to do, and then I go home. Why should I have to? And all of this is virtue signaling and grandstanding by corporations, in my view. So I'm gonna, if you got something to say about it, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to say it now. And I'm pretty sure people are gonna disagree with me. And I understand why you do. I just feel like what we're doing is we're throwing a black man under the fire because a white man told us to. We hanging niggas because a white man told us to. Again, I can list all the presidents who got guns and been on pictures with guns. I can point to like NFL athletes and even NBA athletes, white dudes with guns, shooting, killing animals and shit. But when it comes to niggas having guns, all of a sudden it's an issue. This was the same problem that people encountered in the 60s in California, the Black Panthers, to be exact. Everybody was about Second Amendment rights till niggas start carrying guns in public. Soon as Negroes start carrying guns in public, the very same people who now are pro Second Amendment rights, they did everything they could to regulate gun rights. Did they not? And who is a fucking corporation to tell me what rules I have to follow? That's all I'm saying. Like, you're not my daddy. I just come there to fucking work. If what I'm doing at work is satisfactory at work, then why the fuck should I have to do all of this public relations bullshit? Why? Go ahead, man. Gotts von Blickling. Talk to me.
Goitz von Berlichingen.
Berlichingen. Okay.
So I'm just going to speak my piece because I don't really know if I disagree with you. on anything substantive. I just think that the NBA, what they sell to America, their product, John Morant, he tarnished their product. So, you can shoot baskets, whatever you do, what I mean? Whatever. Like, you could bag groceries. But if you bag groceries and then you go out and cuss out the customers and act a fool in front of, you don't get, you can't say, oh, I did my job. Now, kiss my ass. I do what I want. You know what I mean?
Hold on. If I'm on the job, if I work at Whole Foods and I'm on the job,
Yeah.
and I start cursing out customers in the store, I'm on the job. Okay? I'm cursing out people at the job, on the job. That's me being rude to people on the job. If I'm in my own home and I'm cursing and I put it on social media, if I use profanity on social media, can Whole Foods then say, we don't like the presentation publicly of profanity, and so therefore it violates our policy? We pay you, we provide you with health insurance and retirement, and we give you a salary that allows you to subsist, and so therefore I think that you should constrain the kind of things that you say in public because you are an employee of ours, and insofar as you're an employee, we don't want you, tarnishing our public imagery. Or we don't want you to drink in public. We don't want you to be an embarrassment to our company. We don't want you to have sex with people who work at the company, even if they're willing to do it, because we don't want the potential to exist for any kind of lawsuits to emerge. We don't want you to have or voice any opinions about politics in general, because we feel like that might create an unfriendly work environment. It might be legal for you to smoke marijuana, and no, you're not operating heavy machinery, but since we don't like, we have an anti-drug policy at our company, we don't want you to use a substance that's psychotropic, if it's not alcohol, which, by the way, is kills more people per capita than any other fucking drug out here. But I mean, the point is, how far does it go? And the question is, if it's okay for us to be angry and upset about a government telling us what we can and what we can't do. We don't like a government to intrude or infringe upon our freedom, but we allow for and permit for corporations to do exactly that. And the only defense that we have is, well, they made up the rules.
I would say that I agree with you that the technocracy that we live in diminishes our humanity in such a way that I'm against it. I say, yeah, fuck them, the company telling me what I can do and what I can't do. But the reality, we've been living in that world for a long time. Let one of these peckerwoods use the N-word inappropriately. They gonna lose their job, whether they in their own house or not. You know what I mean? So it's already, all this cancel culture, the shit, let some tranny hand me a Bud Light and me say, no, I don't want to have that. It's like,
come on, bro.
God, but I'm saying though, we already living in cancel culture. We already living in this weird 1984 bullshit.
And this is the thing that kills me, right? And I want to speak to this, right? So everybody says this to me just shows you how people are about lucre more than anything else. So the first thing they'll say is, if you give me $230 million, I'm going to do whatever you tell me. If money is, especially if wealth is attached to it, then you got to be willing to make compromises. Like, say for and like you're beginning to see this, especially as it pertains to like comedians, right? One of the somebody in the chat mentioned this, but like Dave Chappelle, right? So then it starts to talk. It starts to seep into the relationships that like comedians have with corporations. Like Dave Chappelle has a corporate connection to Netflix, and then certain people in the public can say, well, I don't like his comments about X, Y, and Z. And so therefore, I think you should tell him that he can't say these things. And then the question becomes, when did it become fashionable? When did it become a matter of justice? First and foremost, let me just say this. The 60s was the era which gave birth to all of this so-called political correctness and woke politics. That's where it all, that was the instantiation of it all. Okay? That's where it began. Now, we already know that the principal the heavy lifting that was supposed to be done to change the trajectory of the country to where there would be substantive and not mitigative change, to where there would be actual fundamental justice that persists within the country as opposed to lip service, platitudes, and smoke screens and smoke and mirrors. Now, what we have is smoke and mirrors and companies acting as if they're on the side of justice and they're arcing towards justice. But during the 60s and 70s, you had distributive justice arguments being put forth by people like Martin Luther King had the Poor People's Campaign. The feminists were talking about class politics, class-based politics. Now, the politics has become nothing more than representation, tokenism, representation, and visibility, without any attendant or substantive change in distributive justice at all. What you're seeing is you're witnessing the financialization of the economy, and nobody's talking about it, and how CEOs are using like financialization instruments in order to fucking shrink the middle class and take like the lion's share of the profits of the gross domestic product in this country for themselves. Nobody's even having a conversation about distributive justice or the expansion of the middle class or trying to put an end to the relative poverty that exists within the U.S. But what you do have is a group of gatekeepers and people willing to actually jockey for corporations to be able to tell us what the fuck we can and what we can't do. And I just don't understand it. As a person who studied philosophy, as someone who knows, right, the initial arguments that emerged out of the 60s and the 70s, and the class politics that was supposed to be the materialist dialectics that was supposed to be connected to it, and now all I see is the politics of fucking, who can fuck who can't, who can have this, who can't have that. And it's not government that's telling us what we can and what we can't do. It's a fucking employer telling us what we can and what we can't do. When did we put such power in the hands of employers?
The business of America is business.
I haven't watched Kwame Brown's response to John Morant. I haven't watched it, so I can't weigh in and say anything of any import about it because I haven't seen it. But what I do know is this is what ends up happening. Because think about this. They did this to Allen Iverson how long ago? They said he was bad for the league because he had cornrows and tattoos, right?
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
No, I don't want to. How does Siri all of a sudden listen to me and shit?
What would you like to know?
I don't want to know nothing, Siri.
You tell them stop talking that subversive shit.
Man, I'm gonna always talk subversive. But I mean, but the point is, and look, the only point I'm making is they use the same argument about look about publicity and marketing about Allen Iverson. Well, your clothes are too baggy. You look too much like somebody from the hood. The cornrows are a little too much. You look like somebody from, a subculture. And it only, all of this shit started when little white boys and shit start wanting to turn, like Post Malone want to start wearing his hair like Iverson.
Well, it's exactly like what you're saying. I agree with you, because you could take the same. You could think of the people that criticized LeBron when he broke out his "I Can't Breathe" T-shirt, and there's all that whole "Shut Up and Sing" movement that the white conservatives were angry that certain pop stars were using their celebrity to promote their political stuff. So the idea that, hey man, you're just here to entertain us. We don't want to hear none of y'all bullshit. There was a level, I understand, everybody pushed back against that. Everybody was like, hey, that's wrong. Let these celebrities express themselves, fuck the corporations. But then when you got the black men, displaying the firearm, it's suddenly it's like, whoa. There is an inconsistency in the in how people are judging these situations, but at the same time, that's the way it's been. If we're going to live in this spectacle, that's the rules of the spectacle. You can't, if you it's all about clicks and eyeballs and all that shit. Once you elevate the celebrity, you take this celebrity and say, because these white people are giving you all this money, we're gonna be beholden to you. Then all of a sudden, then you accept that. You've accepted that.
So all I'm saying is, look, we got a record. Guns in America are like apple pie. Guns in America are like whiskey and apple pie.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Okay? Look, and one can argue, okay, well, that's presidents. I mean, they represent the armed forces or whatever the case may be. Okay? But it is a constitutional right for an individual to be able to bear arms.
True.
Then the question becomes, why can a corporation, if the government can't infringe upon our rights, why can a corporation infringe upon our rights? And why are we complicit with a corporation being able to tell us? But it's not just that instance, okay? There are other instances, especially with the NBA. Recently, they said, Kyrie Irving, you have to apologize. You're suspended because you said something that we find racially insensitive.
Yeah. That's very inconsistent.
Or they say, Udoka, you can't have sex with a woman at your place of employment. And if she's connected to this organization, you can't have sex with her.
Yeah.
And the question is, how is the NBA telling me who I can fuck and who I can't? If it's consensual between two adults. Now I can see if it was coerced, if there was a violation of law. Okay, there was a crime committed. But if there is no crime,
okay, so you understand that's the reason for that is that the women can always Me Too. It's a woman's prerogative to change her mind. So no matter what happens, the reason for this shit is that they go. If 20 years later the woman makes up some kind of crazy bullshit idea, like Idoka used the voodoo mind trick on me, and I was under his spell, and I couldn't resist. Everybody believe all women, Me Too. They're gonna say they're gonna back them up legally and say you should have known that this was some evil maniacal shit. They're gonna say you should have. So that's the whole reason. It's because the woman can. So it's bullshit. I understand, but that's the reason for it. If women can always Me Too you, That's why they have to cut all that shit in the bud because they're gonna be on the hook down the line. That it's not like they actually have any true moral stance against it. It's just legally they will be held responsible, and it's recognized that the female has the option to at any time say it's non-consensual. She can retroactively retract her consent based on whatever the fuck comes to her mind.
You have a history of NBA players brandishing guns. Black ones.
Well, who's the dude that was in the was it the guy was it
this
what's that
motherfucker
nigga name?
has
Rasheed
an
Wallace?
assault, bro. Look,
Rasheed
Karl
Wallace?
Malone has an assault rifle.
Who's the guy that brought it into the guy who actually who brought the guns into the locker room? Remember that guy?
I can't remember that.
But it was like Rasheed Wallace or somebody. It was
it might have been Gilbert Arenas or something like.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And he was playing the whole, and they suspended him a couple games. So yeah.
Now it's one thing, like a case could be made that, you know, like if I have a job, if I have a place of employment, I'm not going to permit a firearm on the grounds.
Okay. Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Because that's their place of employment. That's their business.
Yeah.
Right? I work there, and I can understand them saying, okay, while you're here employed, while you're while you're working hours, this is what you can't not do while you're employed.
Yeah.
But and I understand, like, look, I get the idea that athletes, they kind of, you know, they occupy a special place in the public. They're supposed to be perceived as model citizens and heroes, right? Or at least that's how these leagues want to market these athletes. Like
that's their purpose.
They're the best of the best of what America has to offer. And, you know, like their work ethic entitles them to receive the kind of, you know, compensation that they receive. And
they exist to let Negroes believe that they might get a piece of the American dream if their kids can run fast and jump out.
But you know, my whole thing is, look, I understand that, you know, like the NBA might not want to be connected with thug culture or whatever the case may be.
Okay? Who does?
But let's face it, thug culture is a product of American culture itself.
No doubt. No doubt.
Get rid, and that's my only view. My whole viewpoint is thug culture did not emerge out of nothing. I want you to think about this. Since people like to argue, okay, well, it's just black people that are like this. Okay, we already know like where we're descended from. We are the descendants of Africans, West and Central Africa. Were they thugging on the savannah in fucking Africa? Were they thugging? I mean, put it this way. This is what I don't like to see. I don't like to see the source of violence be tethered to black people as if it's something unique and endemic to black people in America by itself. But because let me state it. Nobody talks about the violence endemic to Italian culture and the mob. Nobody talks about Russian violence and their connection to the mob. Nobody talks about the fucking Yakuzas being emblematic of Japanese culture or the triads being emblematic of Chinese culture. But you start talking about black folks, well, you know, the violence in and of itself has a source somewhere deep in who it is that we are as human beings. Not to mention, I mean, think about all of the violence enacted over centuries in this country and just European countries in general, even with each other. Like, even over America, the motherfuckers fought. The French fought, the Spanish fought, the Brits. fought the Portuguese over America. They had wars over this landmass.
The violence that is associated with Black people in the context of this discussion we're having is all a result of the fact that we don't have any money. The whole world, there's nothing that happens within any population of people that doesn't happen in all the other populations. All this violence right now, the world is blood soaked in just the massacres, Miramar, like this is the whole world, right? Sudan, all over the world. The shit that why the Mexicans is running across the border because they fucking kill the world is violent as fuck. Living in the United States, we're isolated from that, and we see it on the TV. And the only time it affects us is when the Black people living here who are living under third world conditions. You know, we are living in third world conditions in the United States. So therefore, the violence and the poverty within our situation is violent onto that level. So we like the Peru and Colombia and Dominica and all that shit where you see all that horrific violence. We are on that same knife's edge, and that sometimes bleeds over into the comfort zone of these crackers. And they want to either say it's something endemic to Black people just because they're Black, you know, da da da. I get that, you know, but you know, I get that, and I'm on that. I'm on that. I'm with you on that. You know, I'm with with the Black people in the struggle on that shit. You know, I understand that ADOS, that the people who live in O Block, you know what I mean?
Hey, it's a different experience. Look, I come from the hood, man.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm from Northside St. Louis. Hello? Are you there, Faceless? Hey, how you doing? So just hold on for 1 minute. Give me 1 second. So
all right.
I want to finish this point. So look, I come from the hood. I know what it's like to listen to NWA. You know, the Ghetto Boys. You know what I mean? I know what it's like to listen to Tupac or to listen to Dance and Corrupt. And, you know, the songs Throw Your Guns in the Air with Onyx. I know what it's like to be young. And like, how old is this guy? 24?
Yeah.
24 years old, man. He likes hip hop or whatever the case may be. Now, it'd be one thing if the guy actually was out doing what like Gonzalez did, the kid that played for the New England Patriots, who was out there putting in work for real with the Blood Gang. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
This dude is in his car, man, rapping. Listen, now I understand that, you know, the image doesn't necessarily look good, but shit, I don't care about the image. If you want to do away with that, the whole spectacle of Negroes and guns and street violence, fucking straighten out the conditions in which these kind of people emerge out of your own culture and society, man. That's my viewpoint on it. If you don't, well, that's it. Aaron Hernandez. That's it. My bad. I kept saying Gonzalez.
All
okay?
right.
But it's Aaron Hernandez.
Okay.
So my view is like crime does not come out of anywhere. It's not ex nihilo. You just get crime all of a sudden. There are certain factors and correlates that produce crime. And I just don't like for Black folks to all of a sudden be stereotyped as subcultural, and then whatever expressions we give all of a sudden become expressions that aren't good for business, but it's good for us to jump and to dance and shit like that. But when it comes to like what's going on in our real lives, we gotta hide and clean all that up because that's bad for white folks' business. I don't like that, man. And especially if you got white boys with guns. Like, you know how crazy this is? You recently had a white boy, man, doing BLM, walking up and down the street. The boy wasn't even 19, wasn't even 20 years old. Walking up and down the street with a fucking AR-15. End up shooting the motherfucker, a black dude, and killing him. That boy didn't do no time. That boy free today.
I mean,
And then Tamir Rice gets killed by a fucking guy who accosts him, walks up to him, and now he afraid for his life. He get to protect himself against a kid he comes up on, runs up on. But you can't even have a gun. Or you can't show or demonstrate that you got a gun or be smiling with a gun or... Why should a corporation tell me what the fuck I can do, especially given the history of the United States and race? How are you going to tell me I can't have a gun? Even though I'm constitutionally guaranteed the right to be able to have one. But you don't want me to have one because you feel like it's bad for business? America's bad for business. Clean this shit up, and then you ain't got to worry about none of that. Help be the cause of real change, not this little ticky-tacky mitigative change. Help be a catalyst for substantive societal and systemic change. How about that? Making Ja Morant not play 20 to 30 games, that shit ain't, what is that changing, man? That's stopping the O block?
So what I will say is that for the longest time, Black athletes have hid behind, I'm not a role model. And for a man to be in a place like Memphis, for Black people to be living the way in the conditions that they are living in Memphis, you know, and for this one guy that we give you all this fucking money so that you can give us something to aspire to, so that you can we can see somebody that looks like us on that level, and then you come out with your goddamn pistol and you running around doing this thug shit. The only reason we even give our kid that basketball is the fucking reason we think he's going to escape this fucking bullshit, that we want to have a child who can walk down the street and not have to be afraid that he's going to be killed by the first person that looks like him. Is you gonna fuck that shit, nigga.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm from the hood.
Hey.
I'm from the hood. I done been shot at.
Can I interject now?
Go ahead.
All right. So, hi, first of all. I decided to come here because actually I don't agree. I don't agree with you. I think that if you work somewhere, there's rules and regulation. He knew about the fact that he wasn't supposed to go and, show up again, especially like 2 months ago, you were in this situation. I mean, it's just dumb. We are actually here to make sure that Black people go forward. And for me, this is one of the things that I don't understand and actually don't like the fact that we're always put in this situation. But when some of us actually have the money and have to just, play the game so that the rest of us get clean and just stop being in this life of hoodness, we go and do stuff like this. This brother does not need to go and pretend that he wants to shoot anybody. He did not grow up like that. You say you grew up in the hood. I've never been in the hood. Why the hell would you want to do something that you're not? That's first of all, because now we all know that every time a Black person does something anywhere around the planet, I actually was born in Africa, like just it's one Black person is Black person. When he does that, it's like, oh, all Black people can do that. And it's ridiculous because we all know that this is not how it is, but this is how it's seen. This is how it's portrayed. And for me, if you know the rules and regulation, he got lucky. He only got suspended last time like for 8 games. And you just go and do this again? I think it's just crazy. Because they're going to actually come after you. And for me, actually heard somebody, if he doesn't want to play in the NBA, he could just quit. But if you want to be there, you have to follow the rules. I was not actually agreeing with the brother who just left about the coach that slept with somebody else. It's not about women and, Me Too story, whatever. It was about that this woman was probably somebody up there's wife. And he didn't like what he heard, and he doesn't want his wife to actually sleep with a coach. I think this is why he got fired and the wife is still there. So it is what it is. But Black people sometimes, yes, we are in a bad situation and it's unfair, but sometimes we have to take the responsibility for it. He did this crazy shit, and I think now if he gets fired, that's on him. That's what I wanted to say.
You done? I
Yeah,
just
I'm
want to know
done.
if, like, okay, so look, my whole thing is this. I've laid out my argument from the beginning, okay? And from the beginning, look, I understand that, like, he signed a contract or whatever the case may be with the Grizzlies or with the NBA. I get it, okay? But that's not enough for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, people can sign agreements all the time, and the agreement might not be valid, predicated upon it being, like, illegal or unconstitutional. Okay, so just because you sign an agreement or you know, an employer tells you that this is how it's going to be, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be that way if, you know, the agreement in and of itself is unjust or illegal. And my viewpoint would be like, it's illegal. If the government can't infringe upon your right, then why can an employer infringe upon your right? If the government can't prevent you from being able to bear arms in a legal manner, no matter how bad it looks or how good it looks, how can a corporation then turn around and tell you what you can and what you can't do related to your rights and you be complicit with it? I mean, and everybody be complicit with this. I don't get it, because to me, freedom is a principle that either you advocate for or you don't. And it's inconsistent in act and speech to advocate for freedom from individuals or freedom from government, but then subject yourself to less freedom related to, you know, your employer. Why? Did they have moral authority over your life? Did they get to, you know, act as a parental figure and constrain your behavior and tell you what virtues or values you should have or hold or instill or promote? I think it's taking it too far. But, you know, that's my opinion. I don't think a corporation should be in the business of virtue building or proselytizing morality to people, especially since they're dirty as fuck themselves. The corporations are really, I'm just saying, like, not, especially today with the financialization of the economy, corporations are robbing people left and right. You got a new generation of financial elites who have no problems with taking people, you know, to the cleaners and doing only what's best to them or for them financially. And it's one, to me, it's not just about this event. It's about people's complicity, their tacit agreement to allow a corporation to have some sort of control over their moral lives, even within the context of what's legal. I don't like if I'm going to be about freedom, I want to be about freedom all across the board, not to pick and choose what, you know, is free or not free at any given moment. No, if it's free for me to be able to do this, then who is an employer to tell me that I can't do it? I mean, think about this. What if an employer said, you can't have a gay relationship? They used to do that shit.
I agree with you
You can't be in a same-sex relationship. The employer said you can't be in a same-sex relationship. Everybody would be like, oh, open arms and shit. Oh, no, you can't do that. You can't tell these people that they can't have, you know, homosexual sex. Everybody be up in arms about it. Or if somebody were like, okay, if someone told some kid, you can't be trans. A corporation told a kid that, everybody be up in arms about this because it would be a violation of rights. However, as it pertains to having a gun, I don't care if the guy's shooting the gun off in his backyard, listening to, I don't know, Eazy-E. To me, it doesn't matter. Now I understand, like everybody wants to say, okay, this is a guy who's wealthy, he's made it. But here's my argument, right? A lot of times people think that being successful or being financially well off is enough to achieve racial justice in the United States. And there are too many black people that believe that this is true. Okay? And another thing they believe is that financial success or starting a successful business is actually enough to achieve racial justice. And it's based on the assumption that racial disparities are primarily a result of economic inequality. But as far as I'm concerned, economic inequality only plays a part. It's a significant part, but it's a part. It's not the only factor. So when we talk about like the position of black folks, systemic racism refers to a complex interaction of culture, policy, and institutions that hold in place the outcomes that we see. It's not confined to individual prejudice or to the actions of individuals, but it's built into systems and social structures. So to me, this means even if a person of color becomes financially successful, they still might face barriers and discrimination. Because let's face it, research has shown you got job applicants who have names that sound black. They're less likely to get a call back than those with white sounding names, regardless of the qualifications. Then you got wealth gap. And statistics that we understand that exist between blacks and, for example, white folks. So starting a successful business, it can be a path to financial success, but it's important to remember there are significant racial disparities in wealth that make it more difficult for people of color to start and maintain businesses. Now, I'm not saying you can't be successful at all. Don't try. That's not the point. The point is, everybody likes to take their own situation and they like to use it anecdotally as a means by which to explain why everyone else can do what I'm doing. But if we're looking at an iterated series of instances and we see that there's some sort of general rule of thumb that's occurring related to a certain set of phenomena, fuck your anecdote. I don't care about your anecdote of your personal success and what you did and how virtuous you perceive yourself to be. There's still discriminatory policies in place that has led to like the inability of black folks to be able to procure wealth, like redlining, the borrowing from the GI Bill, not getting access to FHA loans, which is a source of generational wealth. So black folks have those issues to deal with. You got and to me, this is to me, all of this is implicit bias because it refers to attitudes or stereotypes that affect understanding about what we're doing and like the threats we cause or pose to other people. Regardless of your financial status. So you can see a picture of Brett Favre with a gun and nobody at all bats an eye. Brett Favre with a gun, oh, he's just a good old boy. Doing what good old boys do. No big deal. But we see somebody who looks, a young black man, who looks like many young black men in urban environments. Now it's time to say, oh, that's dangerous. That represents a danger there. You got motherfuckers killing everybody and shit in America, man. People going on shooting sprees and a whole bunch of other shit. We worried about a young black man in a car singing rap music with a gun in a country that's full of guns? With the history that America has with guns? That use guns to take the country from the Native Americans? That use guns to put Africans in ships, to transport them by the millions to the Americas? They use guns in order to keep them on the plantations? They use guns during Jim Crow in order to terrorize them? They use guns in order to herd them and corral them in the ghettos? Now they got a problem with guns? Now it's a gun problem?
I agree that the game is rigged, but I think that this is where we actually have to play a different game because it is always going to be unfair. I think it's actually too late and it's never going to be corrected. But I think that, first of all, your employee, sorry, the person who employs you is always going to have the upper hand on you. Most of us are just talking about, yes, black businesses and everything of the sort, but how many people actually go there? Most of us still don't go there. And when we go there, we can't find everything. Excuse me?
This, all I'm trying to articulate is this. What is the use of freeing yourself from one master only to chain yourself to another?
Okay, then what do you propose?
I propose that people stop being complicit in allowing their rights to be infringed upon by corporations for the sake of virtue signaling and grandstanding by the corporations when all they care about really actually is public publicity to begin with. All this is marketing. And to me, it's a form of paternalism. You do what we tell you. I think that, America in general, that we don't have a strong labor movement. I think we need a stronger labor party, or people in the United States need to be more serious about like their relationship with like labor in general. But we don't do it though, because in this country it's all about right and left, Democrat, Republican. But you say you're from Africa, so I don't know like where you hail from. I don't know where you live. I don't know what your social condition is. I have no idea. So all I know is I live here.
Yeah, but that's actually one of the biggest problem in America. It's when somebody is actually from the left, the person is really from the left, and anything that the left people will say, the Democrat Party will say, they won't actually be like, yeah, I don't really like that. They will just stuck with it. Same thing with right, and I think that that's very, very problematic in America. I'm actually living in Canada, but I've been to America a couple of times and know pretty much a lot of things about it. But I just think that from the outside, and I think the rest of the world, when we see this, we actually think that that's probably the biggest problem in America, because everybody really stays and don't want, like, the amendments can no longer be amended, which is a problem, because if you just stuck on something and like the laws that have been taken or have been written in like 50 years ago, they actually can't stand today. This does not make sense.
So look, so I just want to respond to something, right? So this one guy says maybe more blacks should join the NRA and buy guns legally. John Morant I think he had an illegal gun initially. But to the best of my knowledge, this gun that he had, and it wasn't illegal in terms of like the gun was a hot gun or anything like that. He just didn't have the gun registered. Okay? Which is a misdemeanor. It's not it's like fucking running a traffic light or something like that. It's not a serious offense. Okay? This time, we haven't heard any circumstances surrounding anything to do with the illegality or the legality of his ability or capacity to hold the firearm. All we've heard is that he somehow violated company policy. And, black people, man, like the NRA was created in part to prevent black folks from being able to have guns. Think about what happened in California and the Black Panthers and guns. The NRA was a proponent of gun regulation when black people had guns. But however, when that was fixed by the government and COINTELPRO came in and shot and killed almost all of the Black Panthers, then, okay, now it's time to, open the floodgates again and make it easier to get guns. They want the right people to have the guns in their hands. And we already know who the right people are. It's white people. They got the guns in their hands. Good job. That's a good thing. You Negroes got guns in your hands. That's a bad thing. Now, I'm not saying black people should have guns and go use them on each other over petty differences. But given the history in the United States, you think it's a bad idea for black people to be in possession of firearms?
I kind of do, by the way.
But that's Canada,
no, but let me actually explain why. I think that the problem is every time they actually go and do something crazy, they will say, oh, black people have illegal guns. But what if you don't have guns? Then you come actually say you had a gun and then this is why we shot you. And I think this is actually the new fight because, yes, Martin Luther King actually fought for so many things to be there. And yeah, nobody wants to die and everything. But at this moment, since they actually believe and they're always trying to find ways to kill us, maybe this is when we actually drop the gun and just look at them. And normally they shouldn't actually kill anybody because nobody on our side will actually have guns. I know it's kind of crazy, but I think that this is probably something
we've been here before, though. Look, black people didn't have guns in America for most of their stay here. They still got killed. Still got murdered. Still got terrorized. I mean, black people found it like in the United States. I can't speak elsewhere in the Americas. I mean, I can, but like I'm just at the current moment, I'm using the concrete particular example of American culture in U.S. culture in particular. So black folks built all kinds of like towns and stuff like that. White folks with guns came and blew them up. Whether they're peaceful or not peaceful, whether you're, like loud or quiet, if there's a reason for white people to want to take what you got, they're going to take it. Especially if they have more force. And guess what else? Guns! It ain't no secret, man. This is how they won. White people controlled the world through what? Munitions. This is how they get their power. Now, they believe that if the government infringes upon their rights, they have a right to do what? To defend themselves. Do they not?
Absolutely. I agree.
However, when it comes to us, we can't defend ourselves. Like, white people don't just believe that they need to have the capacity or the ability to defend themselves from the government. They feel like they have a right to defend themselves from each other.
Yeah.
I mean, you went to college, did you not?
I did.
So you remember Thomas Hobbes, John Locke. You remember reading those philosophers, correct?
Mm-hmm.
The state of nature, how Hobbes presents it, it's nasty, brutish, and short. It's a situation in which there's a scarcity of goods, and the only virtues in the state are force and fraud.
Yeah.
And that, like the only reason that people give up any rights, if they do at all, is because there's safety associated with giving up a portion or maybe all of their rights over to a sovereign who can keep the peace. But the initial reason that people form, according to Hobbes, and even Locke as well, is to be able to protect their person and their property. But as a black individual, you were the property. Not only that, now we get our freedom. Now, even going to vote represents an affront to these individuals. So they take guns, and what do they do with the guns? They threaten you with the guns. They kill you with the guns. So then you got people like Robert F. Williams who say, look, and this guy was in the NAACP. He was part of the civil rights movement. And he basically says, look, black people have a right to defend themselves. Ida B. Wells, another famous black woman from the United States, says like black people like ought to keep a Winchester rifle and just like they keep the Bible to protect themselves from vigilantes coming to rob or to burn their houses down. And unfortunately, like when white people feel like there's a threat from violence from other people with guns, whether they white, black, whatever the case may be, they don't have a problem with defending themselves. But when it comes to a black person, well, that's black on black this. See, white people don't have a problem killing each other or justifying killing each other if somebody's out of line or if somebody, violates their space or their property.
Well, I do think that seriously, if we're still staying on this path, even in 50 years, it's still going to be the same story.
Well,
I think that sometimes you actually have to. I understand where you come from, and it's so dangerous now because clearly there's nothing you can do to win against a lot of like gun violence in America. The last thing that happened in the subway with this gentleman, I mean, I think it's completely crazy. He didn't have to kill the guy, he overpowered the guy, and still everybody thinks it's normal for the Marine to have done what he did. But that's the problem when killing somebody isn't shocking anymore. So unfortunately, it seems then there's no coming back from that. And the fact that they actually have more money than we do is something also that does not help because we're never going to catch up.
We'll put it this way. Look, I hate to see black people hurt each other. I don't like to see it. But shit, man, I mean, come on, man. Like, look, man, human beings are going to hurt each other, man. That's what we do, unfortunately. I mean, I wish that world was an ideal place. I just don't like for us to be scapegoated and pigeonholed into a category where whatever our actions are, they're negative, but everybody else can do the same thing, but then they get looked at like, they're actually upholding and, undergirding freedom. So a white boy with a gun is a representation of justice and freedom, but a black man with a gun is representative of a threat and he's a menace. Now, the richest white boy in the world can have a gun and nobody will bat an eye because they understand that he's protecting his wealth. And there's a certain amount of honor that comes along and is associated with him being white with a lot of money. A Negro with a lot of cash with a gun is just somebody that's like identifying with the subculture. I'm just saying it's contradictory to me. And I just hate to hear black people do everything they can to try to throw another black person under the bus because it fits into the script that the NBA created. And I know people thought it was going to be totally different because I put, is he an idiot or what on a thumbnail. And everybody expected me to say that Ja Morant is an idiot. He deserves what he's getting. He deserves to be suspended.
He is an idiot.
He wants to identify with, the hood and all of this kind of stuff. And
yes,
so what?
For me,
he's free to do it.
Yeah, he is free to do it. But when you're doing it and you're going to lose your money and you're not going to be able to help some other black person,
he's already rich.
Then
he's already rich, beyond compare. Yeah. He's already wealthy than most people will ever be in the entirety of their lives.
Yeah, but this is not the fight that I believe we have to have. We have to have more people getting rich and pulling out more people out of the hood so that
Ja Morant is not about attack. We got to be frank about this, faceless. Ja Morant is not about to pull a whole bunch of more people out of the hood and make them materially rich. That's not what
also agree.
That's not what people in the NBA do. That's not what I'm being honest. I'm not saying that they don't help anybody, but there's a difference between charity and justice. Okay? There's only so much that one rich Negro can do. I don't know why like Negroes feel like if they're rich, that they have like a plan because they're rich, that they have the right kind of plan to ensure that everybody else that's like them will be materially rich.
Because we're black.
It doesn't work that way.
We can't actually go the route of white people because we are not white people. We have our history. And clearly, to get out of this craziness, to get out from being behind, we actually have to find our whole story, our own narrative. But if we actually stay on this thing and be like, oh, we're all capitalists and everybody can make it, and it doesn't matter where you're from, and we have the same chances, it's not true.
But Faceless, how do people in history ever come to prominence? Like, how does that actually ever happen?
Can you repeat your question? Sorry.
How does any group of people, whether it be a country, a tribe, a nation state, how do they ever come to prominence?
To problems.
To prominence.
Oh, to prominence.
How do they ever come to power? How do they ever become a force to contend with? How is it done?
It was taken from them.
No,
If actually
I'm saying, how is it that any group of people, whether it be a tribe, a nation state, how do they come to power and prominence? How does it happen?
For me, the people have always taken power, money, riches from somebody else. This is the story.
It's war.
Yeah,
and you can't go to war. And you can't go to war by doing the right thing and following orders. You go to war by being martial.
How do you go to war when you have nothing?
Ask the Vietnamese that question. They went to war with nothing. Ask the Afghanis that. They went to war without nothing.
Yeah,
ask the Iraqis. I mean, there are people who are battle torn in the world who will stand up for whatever they consider to be their rights or their way of life, even in the harshest of conditions. The United States was an underdog. They were fighting with the British. I mean, they had a geographical advantage or whatever the case may be. But, I mean, hey, history is chock full of surprises. I'm not saying, all I'm saying is I just hate to see us turn on each other. And, like the expectation is that we be hyper moral. And that's going to be like a good example. And like he needs to be a good role model for the other little darkies. It's not changing justice in the United States. To me, that it's a non-starter. Well, where they give him money. So what? Like Oprah Winfrey is like one of the wealthiest black women in the entire world. She went to Sweden in order to buy a purse. She asked one of the white ladies in that country. I don't know what country it was, but she asked the lady, "Let me see this bag up here. It's a Fendi." I don't know, one of them elite brands or some bullshit like that I would never buy. But the whole point, the white woman refused to show it to her. Oh, no, you cannot get that. No, you cannot have that. You don't need that. You can't have that. You cannot afford this. You're talking to the richest woman that's black damn near on the planet. Still come face to face with a nigger moment. Did everything she was supposed to. You got Henry Louis Gates, Harvard professor, trying to get into his own house on Harvard's campus. They took his black ass and locked him up. What are you doing here? You can be doing all the right things and still get caught up in the system, because the system is not predicated upon giving you a fair shake to begin with. It is predicated upon casting you in the worst possible light. Now, I know you say, well, we shouldn't give them fuel for the fire, but man, fuck that. My perspective is I don't want the NBA, IBM, Netflix, TWA, American Airlines, Amazon telling me what it is I can and can't say, telling me where and when I can't go somewhere, telling me what value system I'm supposed to have and or not have because I work for them. And then all the while, let's be frank about this. Most of the people who occupy positions in these corporations have fucked up attitudes and implicit biases anyway. America right now is a place where as long as you don't say it, it's good. Just don't say it. You can believe that black people are niggers, just don't say it. You can believe that transgender persons are, like fucking evil and like Sodom and Gomorrah, you better not say it. You can believe the same thing as same-sex people. You can believe it, but just don't say it. And to me, nothing changes. You just got a bunch of people who are hiding what it is that they really actually feel anyway, and then they get to posture and pose as if there's some, beacon of light and some, repository of virtue. And then they point the finger at you and tell you how bad you are for not like acting and or like, carrying on the way you should. Like you got to be on your best behavior. I mean, I know what the corporate world is like. I know what the academic world is like. And even academicians, in many instances, like they are fucking like, for lack of better term, they're cowards. They don't say anything. They just let the corporations, the bureaucracy of the government and administrators bully them. And all the while they say they're advocates of justice, but when it comes time for the rubber to meet the road and, for them to actually be champions of distributive justice, they don't do that shit. They worried about their own salaries and their own money, their own livelihoods. That's all they care about. So, look, I done said enough, man. I've been talking for too long. Like, I only expected to be on this show for like 45 minutes to an hour. Thank you for joining me, though. You voiced your opinion. I have a different perspective. You have yours. I have mine. I'm not here to change your mind. I just present the arguments, man, and let the chips fall where they may. But thank you for joining me. I'm about to close this out.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. So, look, thank you for joining me tonight, man. My only, again, my view on this is, I have a problem with corporations telling people what it is that they should and what they should not do, man. I have a deep-seated issue with that. And that's just my view. Thank you, Asada Muhammad. I'll be back tomorrow, man. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about an issue, that you might enjoy, you might not. We'll see. But, if black women are free, then everyone else will be free. We're going to revisit that conversation. I'm going to be joined by some guests. I just hate to see us prosecute each other, prosecute each other through white people's eyes. We'll be the first to, on the plantation, we see the young boy did something. You got the old black slaves on the plantation encouraging the master to give the slave 20, 40 more lashes. I'm like, what? Asada says, my husband is a gun enthusiast. We have a gun at every entryway in the house. It seems excessive, but it's our right to legally have them. We just don't show them off. If Ja is a legal gun owner, what's the problem? That's my viewpoint. If he's legal and he didn't break the law, but see, it's not good for business for the NBA. And look. Chaos, you gotta say what you gotta say quick and get up out of here, man.
All right. I know you've been on here long. I had to give some form of pushback. There's a saying, as someone still pays your bills, they still dictate what you do. You remember the book, The $40 Million Slave? Remember that book?
Bro, I don't. Say that again. Slow down.
The $40 Million Slave. You heard about this? It was a book.
No,
about
I
$40
haven't
million.
read that. No, I haven't read that.
Oh, well, I only present it because I've been hearing that floating around. But the point is this: that yes, it's in his right that he should protect himself, legally and whatever, right? But the problem is, you work for a corporation that still pays your bills. So anytime,
So
like
what?
many things,
So
I
what?
I I know. So what? That's what I'm saying. It's not right, but is you got to make a decision. Either you're gonna play ball or not. They remember they pressured Kyrie, Kyrie Irving with that thing with the
That
sandwiches
was
and
some
stuff.
bullshit. That was bullshit too.
Yeah, and he folded. Now, like if any person, he should have stood firm on his and then take the consequences. But like I said, in time, how much you want this, and that's good.
This is what this adds up to me. So you're willing to compromise your values for some money. So because you working for somebody, you have to do what they say because they're giving you money. Now it'd be different if there wasn't an exchange. It's not like people are just giving you money for free. You're working for the money. So
Yes.
if I'm working for the money, I'm not extorting you for the money. I'm not taking the money from you. But if I'm performing the job, look, I don't like the expansion of job duties to filter into what I do in my private life. I think that's too much.
I agree.
So if a corporation is worried about, I know like it's about lights, action, and camera on the court. But this like all adds up to like say for example what happened to the one guy Beast Mode who used to play Marshawn Lynch.
Marshall Lynch, yep, I remember.
Who basically was like, look, man, when I'm on the field, I'm a beast. What I'm doing off the field, man, don't worry about that. You want to ask me all these questions? First of all, I'm not really actually verbose and articulate like that. So I'm from the hood. Like you wouldn't really understand how I talk and the way I speak and express myself anyway. That's not what you're here for. You're here for the Jackie Robinson type Negro to give you a press conference. But I'm not him. So I'm really I'm not into all of these theatrics. But when I get on the field, I give it 100%. But see, this is all turned, like, I get it, but at the same point, at the same token, I don't get it because I don't feel like you might give me money, but I'm earning that money. It's not like you're giving me anything. This is not an allowance. It's like, like you're my daddy and you giving me the allowance and you telling me how I can spend it or where I can go or where I can't.
Yeah.
And I agree with like this right here. Why is this boy filming him? I agree with that. But you know why he's filming? He's filming him for the clout. My whole thing is, if this was a white boy and it was a gun on a shotgun in a pickup truck near the back window, nobody would have said shit. Business as usual. Nobody would have said nothing. If it was some country music playing, some Willie Nelson playing in the background with a fucking a hunting rifle on the back of the truck near the window, nobody would have said shit.
Can I ask you one serious question? You think because this guy's been showing the gun not once but twice, and remember he has history of not a lot of incidents, that you think the NBA doesn't want to give?
What other incidents does he have?
Like he fought a 17-year-old, I think, in his house, and I'm trying the other one. They talk about the Pacers when they were driving, and there was some Memphis bus. The team in it was shining some light. There's a lot of things, but we're not gonna go too deep into it. But my thing is this: you think that the NBA doesn't want a man like this to be doing certain things on social media to give any other people ideals? Because he is an influencer. I was saying this. I was saying you think that the NBA doesn't want this young black man posing with a gun give any impression minds ideals, black and non-black, because he is influential.
My whole thing is if So Ja Morant's gonna make somebody go kill somebody, man.
I have no idea.
To me, that's bullshit.
I agree.
You got enough little young cats out here right now that are rapping, talking about murdering and killing and drug dealing and drug consumption, which the NBA plays in their fucking games, in their arenas, all over the country. They got them in their video games.
Yeah, no.
You got like Too Short on video. I remember Too Short was on the well, I forget which one it was. Blow the whistle. But I hate to see black people want to see each other get lynched. We like that shit. Teach that nigga a lesson. Give that nigga a lesson.
It's like another form of sexual porn to black
Get that
folks.
nigga. That nigga think what that nigga doing here? What that nigga doing up here with that nag?
Yeah.
Get rid of that nigga. Fuck that nigga, that stupid ass nigga. That dumb ass nigga. till it's pointed at you, then you're gonna wonder where your support at. But then, you know, your whole thing is, this nigga deserve to get lynched. For doing what? Nothing illegal. But lynch that nigga anyway. Fuck that nigga. Kill that nigga. But then you put the premium on black life. No, you don't. You don't love black life. You niggas want to see the same shit happen to niggas that these crackers do. Come on, hey, Rick, I don't know who you are, dog, but bruh, at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck if it's in his contract or not. Contracts get made and voided all day, every day. I'm like, what's in the Constitution? The Constitution says you got a right to fucking bear arms, right? And I'm wondering why niggas, specifically niggas, who really for real, we don't have 1/2 of 1% of the wealth in the fucking country, and you niggas is willing to ride for a corporation over a nigga. Cause you niggas love to tap dance. You niggas love to tap dance for crackers. And you ain't getting shit out of it. Nothing. What the fuck you getting from seeing this nigga get taken through the public ringer? What, nigga? What? What you getting from it? Satisfaction, nigga? What's your satisfaction from it? What's your satisfaction, nigga? Seeing another nigga get lynched and hung? See, you niggas like to see niggas get fucked up. You like that shit. You love that shit. You like to see niggas get taken through the ringer. Because most of you niggas hate yourselves. Give a fuck about no goddamn contract. You niggas like to talk shit and throw niggas under the bus. That's what y'all like to do. A lot of you motherfuckers. You love to throw niggas under the bus, and you'll side with these white boys before you'll side with one of your own.
Hell, they'll side with a white woman.
And the NBA, man, I seriously doubt the NBA can tell you can't own guns. I guarantee you they can't tell you that. And
This is true.
Any athlete that consents to not being able to own a gun so he can put a piece of fucking leather in a hoop is a goddamn dummy to me.
How many games they suspend him since they saw this again?
They suspended him for 20 some odd games or some shit like that, from what I understand, 25 to 30 games.
You know, that's almost half the season.
The point is, guns in America are like Apple. It's like milk and cookies, man. Nobody bats an eye when a white boy has a gun. But if you got a gun, see, he can have a gun, Obama can have a gun, Kennedy can have a gun, Trump can have a gun. All the white boys get to have guns, and even the Negroes who are like in white folks' place, they can have guns.
The proof is in the pudding. All right, Gigi, I'm about to go down. Let you continue or close out the show. I'll see you next live stream. All right.
Let's. Peace. Look, bro, I'm not saying he should be in the strip club showing a gun. If he's in a private place with a gun, if he's in a place of business and they have a policy against him having a gun, then okay, fine. But if he is not a felon, if he is a legal owner of a gun, who in the fuck is the NBA to tell him he can't have a fucking gun? And it don't matter. See, this is the problem. So if white people do it, it's cool. If black people do it, it's a fucking problem. That's my only issue with all of this. White people do it, it's a problem. I mean, it's cool. Black people do it, it's a fucking problem. Man, he ain't the only person that have a... Man, he should be able to wave a gun as much as he want to. Where in the Constitution do it say you cannot wave a gun? Where in the Constitution does it say you cannot wave a gun? I mean, shit. Nobody has a problem with white folks with guns. At the end of the day, man, we used to carry guns all around, man, we was kids, man. We had toy guns all the time. Guns every fucking where. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. Everybody, well, you can't show this gun, can't show that gun. Hey, is gun violence stopping? Is that stopping the gun violence? Fuck no. Man, fuck you, dude. I don't like you, nigga. I don't like you. I think you's a dumb motherfucker. You probably ain't even college educated. You probably, no disrespect, you probably got a C or below average in high school, bro. You're not really actually up to my pedigree, so I don't really have too much to really actually say to you, dude. Straight up. I'm a doctor, man. You know what I'm saying? I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I've thought this through. Only point I'm trying to make is, why are average citizens giving so much power to corporations? That's my question. Why are people so preoccupied with defending corporate policy as opposed to justice? Now, if this motherfucker killed somebody, I could see it. If he was involved in a skirmish with somebody and threatened somebody's life, I could see it. But being filmed, being in possession of a firearm, what's the big deal? Nigga, your mama dumb, nigga. Fuck you. Bye. I'm tired of stupid ass niggas. You was a whole ass dude, man. First of all, I hate trolls to begin with. Like if you don't like what the fuck I'm saying, see, you don't have to use words like dumb. Cause see, that type of shit'll get a nigga smacked where I'm from. Or hit with a gun. That shit'll get a nigga shot where I'm from. All that tough talking. Slick talking where I'm from will get you shot. So at the end of the day, all I'm saying is black folks, man, got a problem with, like, what we supposed to do, what the liberals tell us to do, stop bearing arms? And we need to stop killing each other. That's one thing. I can see that. But saying we need to just de-arm, don't have any guns at all, to me, that don't make sense. That's not fitting with the black tradition. That's some newfangled, civil rights shit that Negroes got in their heads. Like, nowhere else in the world are Negroes thinking like this. I guarantee you motherfuckers in Africa ain't thinking like this. You think the Kenyans like, oh, we need to de-arm. You think the Nigerians like, oh, we need to not have any arms. We need to not have arms. Oh, we need to de-arm ourselves. You think the Haitians like, oh, we need to get rid of all of our guns. Who the fuck is saying this except for civil rights guys? People from the civil rights movement or people who've been influenced by it. The white left. And that's the problem. That's the issue I got. Stop being a fucking slave to a corporation, man. You're not a slave to a corporation. You're not a fucking slave, man. But they did this shit to Allen Iverson. They changed the dress code of the NBA because of Allen Iverson. They did this shit to Chris Webber and them boys. Who are they? You look hip-hoppity. He don't have to be the face of the league. But he is, if he's a good player. All I'm saying is if he's not breaking the law, who cares? But the question is, everybody talks about this one incident, but it's bigger than this one incident. The NBA has demonstrated the capacity to tell their players what they can and what they can't do. Above and beyond a fucking pistol. They told Kyrie Irving he can't say shit about a film that he watched or have an opinion about it without being suspended. They told Udoka, you can't fuck this woman here because we say that, you can't do it. My whole thing is, if she got her legs open and she's saying I can, who the fuck are you to tell me I can't do it? Well, they give you money. They pay you so you can't really complain. Fuck that shit. Stop giving these corporations all this goddamn power. Like, when did the American public become corporate slaves? That's what I don't get. I don't understand, when did American citizens become corporate slaves, where they'll take what a corporation says, but they'll be anti-government, but they're pro-corporation. They'll defend a fuck. You think the NBA gives a fuck about the average citizen in America, man? I'm surprised at how many people willing to tap dance. for a little change. But I know why. Because people's livelihoods are connected to corporations. But that's all the more reason why people should be like up in arms, no pun intended, resisting against corporations intervening or infringing upon what they have constitutional rights for. And I'm sorry, like, if, you know, if the boss's wife is fucking the players or the coaches, shit, you know, hey, the boss got bigger problems than the coach or the players. So something fundamentally wrong with that relationship anyway. And that's my point. If the corporations don't give a fuck about you, why are you riding so hard to defend them and their infringement upon your capacity to be able to operate under the terms of your own fucking rights? And that's only because we allow it. That's only because we permit it. I just don't see, like, the only thing I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna end with this, I don't see the sense in arguing for the government to infringe, to not infringe upon your right or to, prevent you from being able to speak how you want. But it's okay for a corporation to do it. They can curtail your speech because it's bad for publicity. So they can tell you what to say and what you can't say. So they can stick their puppet hand up your ass and tell you what to say. They can tell you who to fuck, and they can tell you what kind of political position that you're supposed to have. That's a slippery slope argument. That's a slippery slope argument. If Ja Morant did it, then everybody be doing it. That's a slippery slope argument. Because one man do it, everybody's gonna do it. Everybody ain't gonna be waving a gun. And if they did, so what? I don't understand. People used to be able to carry guns in the open in like Texas in general, like in the West. People used to walk around with guns all day, every day. No big problem. Now it's a problem. Oh, we don't want to, can't be seen with a gun. I'm done, man. Y'all go ahead, man, and keep tap dancing for these white people, man, at these corporations. I know you need your little dust. You really ain't got shit no way. We already know. They can't tell you what to say. He said, but they can't be compelled to keep employing you. But if you doing, look, here it is. If you doing your job and you're not bothering them on the off time, they shouldn't give a fuck what you're doing. They should have no issue with what you're doing. That's just my opinion. He's just the wrong type of person with a gun. You take the right type of person, you give him a gun. Fuck, you had fucking Shaq walking around with a gun. Like he a fucking deputy or something. He walking around with a gun all over the place. Karl Malone with guns. This is like Kanye West. The motherfuckers came and attacked him. Get him, fire him. Man, you Negroes, man, like I wouldn't want to go to war with a whole bunch of you motherfuckers at all. Because you'd be, here, enemy, here he is, get him. Boy, you motherfuckers will sell a nigga out quick, boy. Y'all niggas couldn't hold water, boy. Couldn't hold water. If you had like 1,000,000 cups, you niggas couldn't hold water. I'm out of here, man. I'll holler at y'all later, man.